Thanks everyone for joining this session today. And the objective of today's session is to really discuss the role of North-South partnerships in delivering energy access. Just before I sort of introduce the co-moderators, this session is hosted and also sponsored by Energy Catalyst. Energy Catalyst is a platform that is designed to accelerate innovation to end energy poverty. And Energy Catalyst is also a strategic partner for Sankalp Africa this year. So a big shout out to them to put this together. And we also have the African Management Institute co-hosting this with the Energy Catalyst. The objective of the session is really to build a case for mutually beneficial partnerships to deliver energy access. And without further ado, I would like to call upon Patricia from the African Management Institute to introduce our speakers who are here and our co-moderators, and also to take you through the format of the session. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prachi. It's really great to meet everyone. I'm going to go ahead and first just share my screen so that we can get started as I get ready to introduce both our moderators and our panelists. Great. So welcome again, everyone. As Prachi has said, we will be discussing the role of North-South partnerships in delivering universal energy access. And today, as part of today's session, I'm joined by my colleague, Andrea Warner from AMI and John Lane from the Carbon Trust. And I am Patricia, I'm the partnerships manager at AMI, and I will have both Andrea and John go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we'll tell you a little bit about who our respective organizations are, and then we will invite the panelists as well to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Andrea Warner. I'm the Director of Partnerships for AMI based in South Africa. Really glad to be part of the panel today. This is a topic of particular interest to me, so thanks for having me.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me. My name's John Lane. I work for the Carbon Trust. There's a couple of roles I do at the Carbon Trust. One is I lead the activity in the Energy Catalyst work that we do, supporting the companies involved in the program, to learn from the ecosystem, and so events like this are really important to us in terms of achieving that objective. And I also manage the Transforming Energy Access Programme on behalf of the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Thank you, Patricia.
Great, thank you, John. And I'm just going to ask the panelists to quickly just turn on their videos, say hello to everyone else, and then we'll dive back into the presentation, and we'll be hearing a lot more from the panelists a little later. So if we would start with Jamie, perhaps, and just a quick intro, and we'll come back to you later.
Yeah, so I'm Jamie Young. I'm an engineer at Steamology Motion, working with Strathmore University on EC7 project. Great to be here. We'll talk about it more later.
For me to go, so my name is Gerard Kelly. I'm CEO and co-founder of Upia Technologies. We're a UK-based software as a service company. We're supplying flexible software to LMDs across Africa, and we're partnering with Gigawatts on an Energy Catalyst project in Kenya.
Hi, my name is Jenny Fletcher. I'm the CEO of REF Energy based in Kenya. We're doing a power stabilization and storage project under Energy Catalyst 7, partnering with a company out of the UK.
Hi, my name is Joseph Dindo. We run a social enterprise here in Kenya, and we distribute solar and other energy saving cook stoves. We are currently working with Upia and Gerard in particular. Nice to be here.
Great, thank you to all the panelists. We'll be hearing a lot more from them later in the session. But just to get back on an introduction of both AMI and the Carbon Trust, we'll just quickly walk you through a few slides. So AMI is the African Management Institute, and we enable ambitious businesses across Africa to thrive through practical tools and training. And we enable these businesses to do so just so that they can scale and grow and establish strong and resilient businesses. And we do this using what we call a blended learning methodology. So we combine online learning and online coursework with very interactive learning labs, which we deliver either as virtual webinars, and pre-COVID, we would do that as face-to-face in-person workshops. And we combine that with very practical and applicable tools that business owners and employers can take back into their workplace and begin to apply in real time. And as AMI, we've worked both with entrepreneurs, which is a key part of how we work. We work with businesses to build and grow their businesses into strong, resilient enterprises. And we also work with companies, helping them build motivated and productive workforces through our workplace learning programs. And we also work with youth, helping them prepare for the workplace through career readiness programs, as well as helping them think through how they can start businesses and set up those businesses. And what makes us really different is that we are focused on experiential learning and human-centered design. And so in all our learning programs, we ensure that we are providing practical toolkits and tools that the participants can go back, whether into their workplaces or their businesses, and begin to apply that in real time and in ways that will impact both their businesses and their companies. And so just on a very high level, as I've said, when it comes to our programs, we have three key components. So we lead people through highly interactive learning labs, and we will get a teaser of some of this later on in today's session. And we also combine that with peer support, which is essential, especially for entrepreneurs, as they're leading out their businesses and building out their businesses, just the ability for them to connect with each other, to network, and just build a business community where they can support and encourage one another. And finally, we provide tools that are easy to download and very practical so that they're able to start implementing all their learnings in real time within their business context. And right here, we have an example of a program we've been running with the Energy Catalyst team. And this program we call Survive to Thrive is actually taking the businesses in this program through a business journey to enable them to build stronger and resilient businesses. And as you can see there, we have 6 phases that we take them through, helping them plan out their business and respond to the dynamic environment we all find ourselves operating in during this pandemic, as well as learning how to lead in crisis. And then we take them through a module where they're able to think about innovation and adapting those innovations to the dynamics of a changing and a rapidly changing environment. And then we walk them through financials and how they can set up cash flow analysis and inventory and stock taking, and just being able to test the financial viability of any new ideas that they come up with and strengthen their finances in an ongoing business. Then we also lead them through how to build structures for success so that they're not just thinking about survivalism, but also thinking about how they can be resilient and be in business for the long haul. And finally, we lead them through how they can plan both for short-term and long-term growth. And as AMI, we've been around for about 6 years now. And in those 6 years, we've trained over 30,000 people across the continent. We've worked in 15 countries, both on the Anglophone and Francophone side. And we deliver programs both in English and French. We've run programs in Arabic, in Swahili, and more recently in Kenya, Rwanda. And we've had over 1.4 million tools downloaded. And that just speaks to the practicality of the programs that we run. And in our entrepreneurship programs, all participants who participated say that they've seen 100% of them say that they have seen improvement in their businesses and at least a 19% increase in revenue. And so as I wind down, I just want to share some of the partners that we've been working with. This is a session all about partnerships. And there we have a few examples of the different partners we've worked with. And more specifically on this project, we've been working with the Carbon Trust on the Energy Catalyst Acceleration Programme. And so I will be inviting John now to tell us more about what they do at the Energy Catalyst. Go ahead, John. Thanks,
Patricia. So if you go to the next slide, Patricia, the Energy Catalyst is, thank you, yeah. So the Energy Catalyst, it accelerates the innovation needed to end energy poverty. It's a nice fancy way of saying that the Energy Catalyst invests in companies that have innovative solutions to to address particularly sustainable goal 7. We do that in a number of ways. So one is we provide financial support to those companies who have a great idea and want to see it make it happen. And so that often is a technology or a business model they're trying to trial. So we accelerate those solutions also through providing advisory support. So the other support that we give to companies that have Energy Catalyst grants is via the acceleration program, which really helps them focus on building their businesses alongside their technologies. Build networks, so that's what today is all about partnership. And so the Energy Catalyst Accelerator also provides support for companies to meet new people and build new partnerships. And we'll hopefully hear some really exciting stories of how that's worked out from the panelists today. And then really it's all about unlocking impact, and particularly one of the ways that we try and unlock impact and try and measure how we're doing is how well the companies are doing in terms of raising money from private financiers. And so one of the indicators we look for in terms of how that growth is going is, are the companies starting to get interest from the private sector? And then we obviously want to share our knowledge and the understanding of what we've done. And so we now have a new website. You can find it if you search Energy Catalyst in Google, it'll come up first, which we're very proud of. And so please do have a look at the website, and you'll be able to see lots of things like case studies and knowledge products and those types of things in the area around innovation in energy access. Thanks, Patricia. Next slide, please. So how do we do that? So there's three key things that we do. One is competition. So every year, the Energy Catalyst runs a competition for applications for a grant. And so that runs annually. It's normally around the summertime of each year, depending on areas outside of control, like the coronavirus pandemic, for example. So it may be a little bit later than that year. So collaboration is really important. Again, that's what this session is about today. So we like to help companies build partnerships. The way we've done that going back in history is on trade missions. So we've brought a whole bunch of Energy Catalyst companies over to different countries in Africa in particular, but also in South Asia to look to build those relationships firsthand. More recently, we've had to move that online, but hopefully we'll be back to be able to do it face-to-face as soon as possible. And then I've talked about the acceleration program a little bit as well. So it's really how can we build, alongside building technologies, how can we support building businesses? Thank you, Patricia. So just some of the kind of bold numbers from the Energy Catalyst. So far, the program supported 345 individual projects and committed 140 million. For energy access, that's 60 million to energy access relevant technologies. Lots of projects and lots of companies. We have particular rules for projects that want to apply. So I'm going to refer to those three now. One is called the energy trilemma. So the technology or the project has to address both the energy trilemma, which is, that energy is affordable, that it's secure, and it's sustainable are the three elements of the trilemma. It must meet the transforming energy access. So it must be towards, delivering sustainable goal 7. And then also it must have a good strategy on gender equality and social inclusion. And so just to have a look at kind of where we are, you can see here we have a bunch of different technology sectors in this rather fancy graph. We have the number of projects on the y-axis, and so you can see we've got quite a big portfolio of biomass and bioenergy, energy storage, solar, and mini grids. So the kind of typical ones you think of: productive use and cooking. And then there's lots of other different ones. You'll notice the words late, mid, and early in those projects. So an early project, an early stage project is really, in a lab, or it's kind of, the early stage of creating a new idea. The mid stage project is building a prototype and having that tested, and the late stage is really kind of doing full market testing in a particular location. And so you'll see a lot of the mid stage and late stage projects that we have will have a footprint in international markets, and you see quite a lot of countries there covered in East and Southern Africa, and starting to get more of a portfolio in Western Africa, and then also in South Asia. So in particular projects in India and Nepal and such locations. Thank you, Patricia. Next slide. And this is my last slide, I believe. This is yeah, this is how we're trying to support acceleration. It's quite difficult to read this slide, but what we're providing is tailored venture support. So this can include things like market research to find new markets, or looking at product market fit. It can be supporting organizations on raising finance and becoming investor ready, those types of support, addressing common challenges. So in which groups, trying to find common challenges across the cohort of companies, and also making sure that we're connecting these organizations and our partners and clients to partners and those types of things. And again, that reflects what we're going to do today. So that's me. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. If anyone has any questions for me, you can please put them in the chat box. Otherwise, I'm going to hand over back to Patricia, who's going to take us into the main body of this session. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, John, for that intro. And I think now we've gotten to the point where everyone's been waiting just to meet the panelists and hear directly from them. So to start off, I'm going to invite the team from Steamology and Strathmore University's Energy Research Center. So Jamie Young and Thomas Bundy, welcome. They'll be telling us more about their innovation, but more importantly about their relationship, their partnership, how that's come about, and some of the learnings from that. So take it away, Jamie and Thomas.
Okay, so please tell me if you can't see that. Hopefully you can. So yes, I'm Jamie. I'm a senior project engineer at Steamology, running the energy storage, water-to-water zero emissions energy storage project, working with the guys at Strathmore. So I'm running that project. We've got several other projects going on at the moment, but this is probably our biggest project in terms of sort of resource and scale, and sort of how long we've got left on the project. So it's a big focus for us at the moment, and it's one we're quite excited about. So Steamology was born quite a while ago. The original team, who are all on the sort of all directors now, worked on the British Steam Car Challenge, which was developing the fastest steam car. And they actually broke and still hold the record for the fastest steam car. And that was mechanical shaft driven by a steam turbine. And they broke that record in 2009 in California. They didn't smash the record, so they decided they were going to make another car, but they wanted to make it green. So they started developing zero emissions steam generators. So what we do is we combust hydrogen in an oxygen environment, and that creates a very hot flame, and then turns back into steam. We introduce some more water into that, and then cool that flame down a bit, and as a result, we get around about 400 degrees, 40 bar CP to steam. We then put that into a turbine. So this slide here is actually, so sorry, I'm skipping ahead slightly, but so after the steam car project, the chap who was actually investing in all of it, unfortunately had a helicopter crash and died. But all of the sort of learning and everything was there. And sort of mid-2018, the team were trying to sort of develop it for a commercial product. So thinking of ways how they can actually bring this to any sort of market. And then in 2019, we started working on a rail project, which was developing the system to drive a steam turbine, which would drive an electrical generator to provide electricity to drive some traction motors on the train. So we've been developing various industries from there. Our core technology being the steam generator. So this project, we're looking at energy storage. From this sort of infographic, you can see we're basically taking the excess solar power and we're plugging that into some electrolyzers and splitting the water into hydrogen and oxygen. We then compress that and store it. So during the day, it's slowly ticking away, building up gas pressure and just sort of sitting away in tanks. Then at night, when you don't have your solar, or this particular project is solar, but it could work with any sort of renewable inputs. when the power is demanded at night, we can then run that gas back through our burner and create steam, which goes through our steam turbine and creates electrical energy and electrical power. So the steam that comes out of that is exhausted through a condenser, and then it's recaptured, and then that same water goes back into the electrolyzer tank, and next day gets converted back into gas. So it's a closed loop system. So the only sort of inputs and outputs are energy and heat. So you've got power going in to sort of charge up the system. So it's a gas battery effectively. And then you've got power coming out, obviously with some losses within that. So this is sort of the rough sort of CAD design that's going on at the moment. So we've actually got a lot more hardware coming in. We're in the sort of finishing off the design phase, getting into the build phase. The steam generators that you can see in orange there have been tested, and this is sort of a next iteration for us, but it's being tested in one of our test cells. So this is all developing at the moment, and hopefully we'll have some stuff built by the end of May and start testing properly. This is just, so we're building everything inside a 20-foot container, as everything in demonstrator projects that I've worked on, it always ends up in a container. And we're building that in Salisbury on site, and then that's going to be buttoned up and sent over to Strathmore University in Nairobi to run the demonstration. So we're running, hopefully sending that out around about the end of August is the current plan. But this is obviously COVID dependent. We're meant to have been out there a few times ourselves to physically meet the team. I haven't met Thomas yet in the flesh yet, but hopefully we'll later this year. So yeah, this is the site at Strathmore where it's going to be installed. So that's the solar array that Thomas knows a lot more about than me. On the roof there, and on the left hand side, our container will be sitting in there and hopefully running at the end of this year and beginning of next year. So I'll stop sharing my screen. So the partnership developed, my colleague Matt Candy, who's our CEO, was on the Innovate UK delegation in 2009. And that's where he met the Strathmore guys. And that's how the relationship developed. And I think we've all said internally that without that delegation, we wouldn't actually, well, we would have struggled to make that partnership happen. And yeah, just really helped us get this project off the ground. And we might not have had a EC7 project without it. So yeah, I mean, the Strathmore guys bring, Thomas will talk in a minute, I'm sure, but they're bringing some real expertise to us in terms of sort of the sustainable energy side of things, and introducing us to a lot of new markets and making lots of new friends in Africa and in Kenya. So in the tea industry, in pharmaceuticals, chemical processing, anywhere where they need steam, not just power. So outside of this energy storage project, we're really developing some new relationships as a result, which is fantastic for us because we're trying to find all these new markets where we can sort of push our technology and either create zero emissions power storage or zero emission steam for processing. So I'll hand over to Thomas now to sort of talk about Strathmore's role.
All right, thanks, Jamie. It's a pleasure to hear the story once again. It has been a good project. It's still a good project. And maybe I can talk about our partnership. I physically met Matt when they had the business delegation to Kenya, and we were able to exchange cards. And very quickly, I think in 2 months, we were able to draft a proposal that was good enough to get the grant funding from the Energy Catalyst 7. So it was a very casual meet, but I think the physical in-person meeting was very important. And we were able to find some sort of similarity in what we do, especially for us being a center of excellence for renewable energy. We saw it was a good fit, introducing even a new concept, which is hydrogen in Kenya. So it is one of the first projects that is dealing with hydrogen in the region, and we are very delighted to work with Steamology on this. Our relationship has been good because on the ground we have the contacts. So we have spoken to a number of tea factories, a number of fast-moving consumer good factories, essentially people in need of steam at whatever temperature and bar. Even interestingly, we've been able to speak to an ESCO, energy service company, who are selling steam as a service. So it's quite a good relationship that we are running. And it has been a good project so far. I think that is as much I can say for now.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas and Jamie, for sharing that. I see we are running a bit behind time, but I would just like to ask one key question. First, thank you for highlighting the importance of trade missions and just business delegations as organized, like you said, by UK Innovate. But what would you say is maybe one key learning you've taken out from this process? I think you maybe might have first met like in 2019 or so, but over the past year or year and a half, what is one key learning, if you could quickly summarize, just based on your experience, that you'd want us to take away from this whole experience that you've been through?
Maybe I can start from my side. I think it has been a constant communication that we've been having. I think we have regular meetings on a weekly basis just to catch up on the progress, since we haven't physically met to run this project. The constant communication has been quite good, just to make everything clear and focus on our targets and even meet them.
Yeah, I think that's right. And actually the communications, not to jump on the same point, but it's really helped. I mentioned that, well, Thomas mentioned also the tea and the selling steam as a service and things, but that open communication and the constant communication as well has really sort of provoked some creative discussions around where we can go within the project and outside of the project, and how we can work together after the project is finished, so we can carry on that relationship into the future.
Fantastic, thank you. I'd just like to open up for any questions that may have come up as Jamie and Thomas have been speaking. We will have an extended session of Q&A a little later, but if there's anything that has jumped out at anyone that you'd like to comment on or ask a question on, please feel free to unmute your mic right now, or just send the question in the chat box and we will answer that.
Hi, it's Nick Goddard. I work with the Energy Catalyst Programme actually as a mentor for Steamology, so I know the company very well, and I was on that original trip to Nairobi and echo how good it was. There are two ways you can turn hydrogen into electricity. One is you go via steam, run a generator and make electricity. The other is, of course, a fuel cell. I'd just invite Jamie maybe to list the sort of benefits. It's going to be different applications will have different balance of sort of requirements, and sometimes we think Steamology is going to be the winning solution, and sometimes it will be fuel cells. I'm not sure that was mentioned in the slides, and Jamie, it might be worth just talking about the the longer life, durability, and so on, which plays to the Steamology strengths.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Nick. Yes, Nick's absolutely right. Yeah, so we do often get compared in quite relatively to fuel cells, and we get this question quite a lot. We do have some advantages, and I think there's different sort of levels where fuel cells are good, and the Steamology system is good in terms of sort of power generation. So within the sort of packaging size, you saw the turbines and things there in some of the slides. For example, the turbine that we use for we're using for this low power system, which is a 25 kilowatt system, can actually be ramped up quite a lot higher, to at least 100 kilowatts, possibly higher. So when we're sort of scaling in terms of power, it's not a linear stack all the bits on top of each other. Whereas I think when you get to the fuel cell level, getting above 100 kilowatts, if you need 200 kilowatts, you get another 100 kilowatt fuel cell. Whereas sort of the packaging side of things, we can be a bit smaller, especially on the higher power. side of things. We also think sort of on a maintenance cycle, we're going to be a lot better, because our steam generators have no moving parts internally. It's all, there's nothing moving at all. There's no rare metals, there's no membranes and things. It's all standard engineering materials and processes. So we try and look at things from a cradle to cradle point of view, so that everything within our system can be recycled or reused. And using sort of steel and aluminium off-the-shelf materials, end of life, it can then just go into the scrap metal bin, be recycled. That's all known processes. It's nothing new there. And the only primary moving part we actually have from a sort of maintenance point of view is the turbine, which is very well known technology. Turbines have been around for a very long time. So that's all about just speccing the right sort of bearings. So the sort of maintenance cycle and the sort of the operating costs, the maintenance costs of these units is going to be a lot lower. And I mentioned the power side of things. We're talking hundreds of kilowatts. We are currently working on a project that is a 600 kilowatt unit, which actually for a rail application, but it can be sort of transferred between applications. Really, it's to do with the turbine, the gearbox, and the generator. So we do have different areas of the market that we will sort of work outside of, where fuel cells can't go to certain places where we can. Whereas I think maybe on the lower power side of things, fuel cell might be more suitable. But yeah, I think that's where we would compare to fuel cells.
Thank you for that explanation, Jamie. I think I'll move us along just because of time, but if any more questions, please pop them in the chat. And if Jamie, you could go ahead and share your website link in the chat. Somebody has asked about that. Next, I would like to invite Gerard Kelly and Joseph Odindo. Gerard is with Upia Technologies and Joseph is with GiveWatts. So welcome, gentlemen, and just give us an overview of your project and what impact you are seeking to have with this project. Thanks.
Thank you, Patricia. I'll kick off and I'll hand over to Joseph in a couple of minutes. So GiveWatts is our partner on this Energy Catalyst 7 project in Kenya, more specifically in eastern Kenya in an area called Kilifi. Firstly, a little about Upia Technologies. So we are a SaaS company, so software as a service company, supplying a flexible software to help manage the operations of last mile distributors across Africa. And the software includes a web platform for central office and a mobile app for on-the-ground agents. The two of them are tightly linked. And the platform facilitates in-customer management, it handles payments and lines of communication, and it facilitates inventory and agent management. And importantly, that agent mobile app works online and offline, so that agents are flexible in where they can go and how they can go about their operations. That's in terms of Upia. For Upia and GiveWatts, so we partnered on this project that deals with crowdfunding and monetization of energy assets in Kenya. And the purpose of the project is to demonstrate how our technology can reduce the cost of solar energy for bottom of the pyramid end users in Kenya, giving them access to cheaper, safer and greener electricity. So essentially addressing the energy trilemma. To achieve our goals, we leverage Upia's innovative and flexible client management software and GiveWatts' operational expertise as a last mile distributor in rural Kenya. So through the project, we've already deployed over 90 solar home systems. So think like a small solar device essentially to provide maybe 10 to 50 watts of energy to a family at the last mile. And that's bringing energy access to over 500 people who would not have had access before. And through the project, we're collecting impact data, and that's through the mobile app, so we can run surveys as we go through the project. We collect that data, and that data is from end users, so we can then assess the value that we're bringing throughout this project, and we can get feedback and we can change things on the fly, but also underline how we can best scale this sustainable and impactful business model as we go forward. And before I hand over to Joseph, I'll touch on the fact that similar actually to Steamology and Strathmore, so Upia and GiveWatts also met on that very same Energy Catalyst Catalyst 7 brokerage visit to Kenya in 2019, underlining the success of that mission in itself. So together with 15 other startups, we met with potential partners and clients in Kenya, and myself and Joseph met at a particular networking session that had the very goal of matching companies for Energy Catalyst 7 funding. And from that initial conversation, we went back and forth through email, and we elected to apply, and we were ultimately successful and have now continued to collaborate on this project. So just to touch on that. At this stage, maybe I'll pass over to you, Joseph, if you'd like to take over and talk a little bit more maybe about GiveWhat's and the project itself.
Hello, my name is Joseph, and I work for GiveWhat's East Africa. Just as Gerard has mentioned, yeah, we met actually at the delegation from the UK that had come here in Kenya to sort of look for partnership, and we met with Gerard. And I think that day there were a lot more other companies around. And for us at that particular time, since we've been in operation still since 2014, we were looking to develop a system that could help us, be able to leverage on our customers in terms of finding more information that would help us develop and even introduce sort of new products, and also understand their payment trends and such things. And so by the time we met with Gerard, we were at a place where we really needed a system that could help us manage a lot of our operations. And we had tried out various systems that probably I wouldn't mention now, but none of them could customize to what we wanted. Everyone would tell us that whatever you want is a bit different, and it will take a long time for us to work on it. And yeah, so we talked with Gerard, then he talked to our CEO. I think they met somewhere in London, and we started off, did the joint application together. And since then, we've been in contact. And when COVID happened, we thought that would be, like sort of an end, or things would be slowed down. And luckily, we were even able to work through COVID virtually, and we still continue to work virtually. And this has, I think the information exchange between UPIA and GiveWhat's has really grown. And right now, I can say we are happy, and it's a happy partnership. So probably I'll just leave it at that for now. But basically what we do last mile distribution of energy cook stoves and solar lanterns, from lanterns to solar home systems. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Joseph and Gerard. And I just want to pick up on something you have just mentioned, Joseph, about the pandemic. I think it would be helpful for us all as we're listening in, just to understand a bit more about some of the things that you both did really practically to ensure that the partnership didn't suffer with all that was happening with the pandemic last year, and continuing on into this year. So maybe you can share some insights or some learnings around that in terms of what you did practically to ensure just the continuity of your communications, and that the project didn't suffer as a result of all the restrictions that came about as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think as a result of the pandemic, we since, again, because of distance, we had already started using our meetings mostly were online as we started off. So by the time the pandemic was hitting, I think we had already adapted to the distance that was there. And since we all laid out clearly what we wanted to achieve, this really helped us as we all had agreed on what were our key deliverables. We knew what UPIA wanted, and we knew what GiveWhat's would offer to this. And also, I'd say the system being adaptable to our operations really helped, because even through the online communications that they were having with our agents in Malindi helped us also to innovate a bit on our side. And we now have monthly meetings with our almost 45 agents across the country, just through this particular partnership and that bit where we saw, okay, we could connect an agent in Malindi to an agent in to someone in the UK and someone in Nairobi, and actually they could have a meeting. And yeah, so I think that was one thing that we benefited from. And just to, unless Gerard, you have something to say, so that
that covers it well, Joseph. The only thing I'd add, I think, is that flexibility from both sides. So I think that's we've experienced through the gigawatts are extremely flexible. If we propose something, they won't just shoot it down, they'll consider it and they might come back with a better idea. But and that flexibility on both sides is just we're trying to keep within the scope of the project, achieve our goals, but keeping an open mind that there's many different ways to get there. And through the pandemic, yes, everything was virtual. There's lots of things we wanted to do, we couldn't do. We found ways around it. And then that last point Joseph made, which was great for us, is that meeting the agents. So there's Irene and Elkanah are two of the key agents we work with. They work in remote areas, and we would have weekly meetings with management. So it'll be Joseph and his team and me and the team in one meeting, but also separate meetings with the agents. So multiple channels of communication, then there's WhatsApp chats and so on. So because of the pandemic, you can't meet face to face, so you just leverage everything that's there for you. And I think we've done that pretty well, and we're going to have to continue to do that. I don't see that changing and coming with new ways. So yes, that kind of covers it.
Great, fantastic. Thanks a lot, Joseph and Gerard. So we're going to, if there are any questions, please pop them in the chat box, or any comments, you can chime in now before our next session. Okay, as you're thinking through that, let me introduce our next session. We're going to take a bit of a break from the panels, and we are going to have a breakout activity. And I just want to set that up right now in context, and then we will continue on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in breakout rooms, and in our breakout rooms, we're going to discuss principles of good partnerships. Now, I think the panelists that have already spoken have talked about things like consistent communication, flexibility of ideas. They've talked about just alignment of objectives, just to make sure that each partner is in agreement on what they're working with. And so we want to tease that out a little bit more in breakout rooms. So we're going to have all of us set out in different breakout rooms, and we will be linking to a Jamboard where we just want you to discuss, what from your experience has contributed to good partnerships, the good partnerships that you are already involved with or that you've been involved with in the past, and what you've seen as key principles that actually contribute to these good partnerships. So we'll have a breakout session for about 10 minutes. We'll pop the link to the Jamboard in the chat box. And so you can each just click on that link and you will get onto the Jamboard, and you can just start to write out, the ideas that you discuss within your group. And then we'll come back again and debrief on that. And then we'll hear from Jenny Fletcher from AREA Finergy, who has also had an interesting journey in partnerships throughout this project. So Prachi and team, if you can put us in our breakout groups, and there'll be a moderator in each of the groups in case you have any questions or need additional clarification.
Sure, Patricia. Sarah, if you could just help with this, and I think we can convene back in 10 minutes.
Yes, Patricia, the breakout rooms are now closed. You can go.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So I hope you all enjoyed that session. Anyone want to just chime out some quick thoughts that came up as you discussed some of these principles for good partnerships?
Hi, Patricia. Yeah, glad to. My group discussed a lot about alignment, between the different partners to make sure that was great, and they were the partners were fully committed to what the project they were doing. They weren't just using the product to credentialize their company. And we finished up by talking about relationships and how they, partnerships can exist on paper, or they can exist digitally, or they can exist in physically in the real world, and those might have different aspects to them that we need to be cognizant of.
Great, thanks, John. I think, John, on the point about alignment, something that came through from our group was was alignment, not just in terms of goals and objectives and impact you're looking for, but also in terms of culture and just making sure there's a cultural fit even within the different organizational cultures, especially when we're thinking about north-south partnerships and just the differences in culture that may exist on an organizational level, but just also based on just geographical demographics. So that was a pretty interesting conversation that we had in our group. Anything to chime in, Andrea, from your group?
Yeah, so we had some really interesting conversations in our group. We spoke a bit about trust and the importance of kind of entrusting the partner that you've selected to do something, to do it and keep you informed. And we also spoke about like the need to have partners with complementary competencies. So when the partners have been on board with kind of who do a little bit the same thing and are both very married to their method, it's quite difficult to drive that forward. And finally, we spoke a bit about just being really frank and upfront at the beginning about what you're trying to get out of the partnership and not being political in that conversation, but very honest. Like, we need to do this with you because, and this is why we need you, can really kind of make it a lot more efficient right up front.
Great, thanks a lot, Andrea. And we'll put all of these thoughts together neatly and cleanly and share them with all of you. So next we are going to hear from Jenny Fletcher with AREA Finergy. And we have taken a while to get here, but Jenny also has a really interesting just partnership story and the partnership journey that she's been on. So I'm going to have Jenny, if you can just unmute yourself, introduce yourself and the project that you're working on, and just tell us a bit about your partnership and how that came about.
Sure. Thanks very much, Patricia. So as I said earlier, I'm the CEO of AREA Finergy. We're a Kenya-based company. We work in the commercial and industrial sector. We've installed so far around 20 solar PV systems in Kenya. And one of the things that has really come up as we do a lot of work with manufacturers and different companies that are all around Kenya, we notice that power stabilization is a huge problem. The voltage sags and dips. And so we were looking in particularly in Western Kenya at a client there and realized we've really got to find a solution for power stabilization. We do a lot of work with batteries, but that's storage, that's not power electronics. And so we actively went onto the web saying, where do we find a partner who does flywheels power stabilization? And so we actually found our partner by proactively looking for them through the web, sent an email. We approached a few companies, and then the one that we ended up with Oxtow, we had started discussions, and we hadn't intended to apply for the Energy Catalyst, but it came up as our discussions were getting really interesting, and we were like, here is a solution that Kenya needs, and I think many countries that don't have great power need. And so we applied with them for the Energy Catalyst 7, and that's what catalyzed the partnership. It's been a really interesting journey. And I think that one of the really key things that came out of that was, before going into these partnerships, is to really understand the roles and the relationships of each party. Now, we've got really good communication with our partner, which is really fortunate because it is an innovation. The roles through the partnership have changed and swapped a little bit. There's been an enormous amount of exchange of creative, interesting ideas on really how to make this work. Budgets have had to be moved around in order to make it work. A lot more came onto the Kenya side so that the Kenya side of the project actually ended up doing quite a lot more than had initially been envisioned. But I mean, that's the whole thing about partnerships, isn't it? You know, as long as you've got the communication and the thing of, I'm not always right, and there's another way, and let's look at the best way to get to the solution. And with that flexibility in the partnership, we've got a great project, and we've worked our way through really to make sure that the best innovation of two really creative, smart teams, you know, has come together, and it's like being a big boiling pot at times of like ideas, and, you know, reaching out to different people in Europe for different ideas to really make this work. And we're now ordering equipment, coming down to the final designs. Well, I think the designs have actually been finalized now. So we're super excited about this project happening in Kenya. We think it can make a big difference to a lot of businesses here. As long as it, you know, once it's installed, it works the way that we envision it will. But, you know, this conversation around partnerships, you know, the communication, the being flexible, the not being right, listening to the other person, so that you kind of, you get the most out of each partner. And, you know, it was really clear that the Kenya partner, the South partner, if you like, is so critical, because, and it's come out in the earlier panels as well, because you have the relationships with the clients, you have the distribution networks. In this case, we really understand the power issues that are being felt. So, you know, I think sometimes we have this idea, you know, that the ideas come from the north to the south. I don't know that that's entirely true. I think there's an awful lot of the innovation comes from the south going north. And so it makes it really rich for both partners.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that, Jenny. I think why I thought your partnership journey was interesting is because, like you said, you went online to look for your partner. And what I'd like for you to maybe share with us a little bit is, you know, maybe some of the risks that were involved with that, with you doing that or taking that step. So unlike, you know, the other two groups of panelists where, you know, it was a trade mission. So, you know, I think you would be more trusting in that environment where you feel that, you know, the partners on both sides have been vetted. Whereas for you, you went online and, you know, you were very intentional about finding a partner. So maybe you can talk to us a bit about what that, you know, what that was and how you ensured that you mitigated any risks that might come up from, you know, you don't want to be talking to a briefcase company or some shell company, but, you know, that you're actually legitimately seeking out a partner that you can be aligned with.
Yeah, I mean, so relevant. Yeah. I would say we didn't mitigate all of our risks. We got lucky that the partner we chose was open and flexible and really just wanting to get to the right solution, because they're a fairly young company, a lot of young engineers. And when we went into the partnership, we thought that they would be carrying a lot more of the load and be providing a lot more of the engineering and technology side. And it ended up that our team had to take on a lot more of that than we had previously envisioned, and we hadn't budgeted for it. And we loved doing it, and it was a big challenge, and we've learned a lot from it. But that's the risk of finding a partner who hasn't been vetted, is that, you know, maybe they don't quite have the strengths you think they will have in the beginning, but in the end, then they have other strengths. So it's a risk, but I think that, you know, to find the partners, one has to step out and I mean, it's fantastic what these trade missions that Innovate UK and others do, I think are great, because they do mitigate that risk. And but if you don't, I mean, we don't get, or we hadn't been invited to any of these trade missions. So we resorted to the web, I guess. And not everyone is going to be invited to these trade missions. So we have to just, you know, take our idea, believe in it, and go looking for that partner, because they always do show up. I really believe when you go looking, they show up. And if someone has been to a session like this, which I should have done possibly before going to look for this partner, I may have done more homework. We may have still ended up with the same partner, but the initial budget and responsibilities would have been probably better aligned from the beginning.
Great, thanks for that, Jenny. John, there's a challenge there for you at the next trade mission. Make sure you have
absolutely, we'll definitely have your name on the list, Jenny. I think it's a really fascinating, example of, the partnership coming out of a real need that you've identified in the sector, rather than the other way around of, a technology looking for a customer. It's a customer looking for a solution that's driven your project, Jenny, and that's super interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, we're thrilled we found a partner who could help us. It's such an issue here. It needs resolving, and hopefully we will be part of that solution for companies here.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Any questions or comments on what Jenny has shared? Okay, so we're going to be heading into the next session, but as we just before we do that, Ankit has shared in the chat group that if anyone is looking for any kind of partnership, just pop it in the chat box. You might be able to connect with somebody who is looking for what you have. So please feel free to just pop in some thoughts in the chat box about what you might be looking for or what you might be offering.
I'll also pop my email in there, Patricia. If anyone wants to get in touch, please do so. You can have my contact details.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. So we wanted to talk a little bit about just some risks that may arise as you're seeking partnerships and developing these North-South partnerships. And we're going to do this as just an open session. We won't go out into breakout groups. So there's been a lot of talking from our side and from the panelists, but we would just love to hear some thoughts from everyone else. So we'll just have, unmute your mic, turn on your camera if you're able to, and just, talk about some of the risks and that you've experienced in your partnership journeys and just some of the mitigations around that.
I know I've been talking just recently. Is it okay for me to jump
That's fine,
in?
Jenny. Thank you. Thank you for getting us started.
Okay. So the partnership I had focused on was the Innovate UK one, but we do have two other partnerships, international partnerships. And one is in Sweden and one is with a Danish company. One is a listed company and one is a very, very stable company. And so the challenge of a small, innovative, fairly new company, which is what we're working with under Innovate UK, sort of financing for that kind of innovation. And that had its own risks. But then when you're partnering with a very well-established big company, the potential of them, dictating more the way things have to be, dictating the business model, and is, although they might be big and stable, you might get swallowed up by it. And so that there was a potential of that one. And then the other one, I guess the risk of that is it's a big company that has a product. And so it just wants to sell this product. We want to we're the power partner for the companies in Kenya. So we want to find the power solutions, the best power solution for whichever company or industry we're working with. And yet the partnership with this big company, they want their product to sell. So, each partnership brings they all have their positives as well. This is just sort of more the risks. So each partnership we've found, needs managing. Otherwise, we could get swallowed up or be pushed towards, pushing stuff to our customers, which isn't what they really need.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Jenny. Other thoughts on just some of the risks that you've encountered?
I think on our side, we found that when you pursue partnership for the sake of partnership, so perhaps it makes sense strategically to be aligned to an organization, but the actual material end goal is not clear or not as important to both parties, that it ends up being quite a time waster ultimately, and not kind of useful to getting good work done. So I think that's, for me, anytime I've been involved in a partnership, that happens because organizations feel like they should be partners, doesn't really lead to much.
I wonder if I might contribute. Oh, Wayne, perhaps you could contribute. Thank you, Wayne.
So, and just to add on to what Jenny has said, when a company is at the grassroots level and they really want to bring up the innovation, and just talking about the issue on financial stability, you see, they may not have the financial muscles and tend to reach out to a bigger company. But now the challenge is, definitely every business will always ask you that, what is it? Is there anything in for me? What am I going to get out of this partnership? And at times they tend to tell you that, hey, we're going to divide this between us, 60% for us, and you get 40%. And definitely, when they have the higher shares, then they'll dictate more, and that forces mostly people with amazing innovations to go back to the cocoon with amazing ideas. And trust me, there's so many people out there with amazing ideas and innovations, but just because of that experience, they tend to not bring it out.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in on that, Wayne, and just the importance, I think, going back to just being very open right from the start of the partnership as to what you want, and just voicing that, and not being politically correct about your needs and what you're looking for. John, you had something to say?
I was just gonna put a question. Well, it's almost a question. It's kind of, so a lot of when looking for partners, a lot of people will do some kind of due diligence process on the partner, which can be quite. Sometimes it's difficult for the partner to meet certain obligations that might be expected, depending on where they're located and the size of the company and those types of things. And so, just throwing out the idea that kind of due diligence processes, do they need reforming? Do they need, how do they work in partnerships for other people? I think they're a very difficult part of that kind of initial partnership relationship. It sounds like Jenny did very little. If I can say that, Jenny, I don't know if that's right, if that's fair to say. Whereas others are just so bureaucratic and take so long and are so invasive and those types of things. Really, the partner that's doing the due diligence can start to feel quite uncomfortable about it. Yeah, interesting in anyone's thoughts on that. Patricia, I don't know if you've got any thoughts, or anyone else in the audience has got any thoughts on due diligence in partnerships.
Yeah, on that point, John, we did a lot of technical due diligence.
Yeah,
but we didn't do financial strength.
Yeah,
bench strength.
Yeah,
due diligence.
Yeah.
And it may or may not have changed our decision. I don't know. We didn't do it. But yeah, that balance, I really take your point of, doing the right amount of due diligence where it pays off, so you make the right decision to partner or not, but doesn't take so much time that it drains.
Yeah, drains the relationship from the start.
I think it's interesting on the due diligence side as well with smaller companies, when we're looking for new projects all the time, and we're trying to launch this new technology and get sort of investment and things. When the sort of application process and everything is great, but time consuming, and when you're trying to get on with the sort of engineering side, you're trying to do the sort of what, as an engineer, I would consider the important work. And then, but it's also incredibly important to get the applications right. Doing the due diligence on top of that is, that's an extra bit of work. And it's, what's the best way of doing that? So we were obviously quite lucky, I think, with our partner being Strathmore University. We're sort of fairly we were fairly confident in that. But if it had been something a bit more smaller or less stable, that might have been a problem for us. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jamie. I think, you know, even for us as AMI, the thing with due diligence, yeah, it does take, for some of these partnerships, it does require a lot from you. And so if you're a smaller organization, it can be quite daunting. But I think what we found is the first time is always the hardest. And once you've kind of done it that first time, I feel like it gets easier with each successive partnership. So as daunting as it is, you know, I would just say for those who may be going through that process at this point in time, pressing through is painful, but it's worth it at the end of it. Are there any other thoughts? Actually, I see we are actually coming up on time. Yes, Mark, please go ahead.
Yeah, another angle. I work with Get Invest, and we try to create partnerships between companies and investors. And one of the things that that needs to be thought about is that a lot of times the companies don't think about the needs of the investors. And I think companies need to really think about when they're seeking investment, they need to be thinking about what does the investor need, and the investors need to be thinking is where are these companies at? Because there's a lot of our work as Get Invest is bringing different groups together. A lot of the people in the energy access field, they're just looking at, oh, our company needs this, our company needs this. But the investors have their own issues that they're bringing to the table. They have to make a return on the money that they're putting in, and the people who are seeking investment need to understand it. So when we're talking about partnerships, we also have to think about developing the partnerships between the entrepreneurs who are very goal-oriented and the investors who are very financially oriented.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mark, for bringing that out. I think because we are at time, we will have to cut this session here. But we have really enjoyed just the time in speaking with you, and thank you to the panelists for just sharing your partnership experiences, and to John and Andrea as well for moderating, as well as the SunCalc team for all the technical support. We will have that link on the Jamboard app, so you could always get back and just look at some of what's been shared. And we will also organize that and put it in a way that's easier for you to access and just follow. We had a tool that we wanted to share with you, and I think we will do so. I don't know, Prachi, are we able to share any links with this group after the session?
Sure, Patricia. I'll share the list of participants with you, and then we should be able to do that.
Okay, great. Yeah, fantastic. I think so. We're going to wind down here. Any parting thoughts as we close out?
Just a big thank you to everyone from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. And just before we leave, please do visit the virtual exhibition booths that we have for the entrepreneur delegation, as well as for Energy Catalyst in the exhibitors section. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.